Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next chapter with C. James Merritt. I'm James, and I'm really glad that you're here. Over the last several months, I found myself thinking a lot about what comes next. Recently, my son, he graduated from high school, and as many parents can probably relate, moments like that have a way of making you stop and reflect. You realize how quickly time passes. You realize that the seasons of life, they just don't stay the same forever, and you begin to think differently about the future. For me, those reflections have led to a lot of thinking about career, retirement, financial independence, purpose, and what I want the next chapter of life to look like. And ultimately, that's why this channel exists. A little bit about me. I'm a longtime financial professional, a CPA, and someone who has spent roughly 3 decades building a career in corporate America. I've been blessed to work with great people, led talented teams, solve challenging business problems, and build a career that has provided opportunities for my family and me. And while I still enjoy what I do, I also recognize that I'm no longer in the first half of that journey. In fact, if I were to use a football analogy, I'm a big Georgia Bulldogs college football fan. I'd say I'm probably somewhere late in the fourth quarter of my corporate career. Now, that doesn't mean the game is over, far from it, but it does mean I'm beginning to think differently about time, differently about priorities, differently about freedom, differently about what comes next. And over the last few years, one idea has continued to rise to the surface for me. It's a word that most people don't use very often, and that word is optionality. In fact, if there's one idea that sits at the center of this channel, it's probably that one, optionality. To me, optionality simply means having choices, having flexibility, having the freedom to decide how you want to spend your time, your energy, and your life. And the older I get, the more I've come to believe that optionality is one of the most valuable things we can create for ourselves. When we're younger, we often focus on earning more money, getting promotions, advancing our careers, building our lives. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that wealth itself isn't really the goal. The goal is what wealth makes possible. The goal is the freedom that comes from having choices, the ability to pivot, the ability to adapt, the ability to pursue opportunities that are meaningful to you, the ability to weather unexpected challenges, the ability to spend more time on the things that matter most. In other words, optionality. I've also come to believe that one of the most important things people can do throughout their working lives is to steadily build financial independence. Now, when I say financial independence, I'm not necessarily talking about retiring early or never working again. In fact, that's one of the reasons I wanted to create this channel because I think many people view retirement as an ending. I've started to view it differently. I increasingly view retirement as a transition from work that we have to do toward work that we choose to do, a transition from obligation toward greater freedom, a transition toward greater intentionality. And for many people, including me, that may not mean completely walking away from work. It may mean working differently. It may mean working part time. It may mean consulting. It may mean mentoring, volunteering, creating content. It may mean pursuing projects that are deeply meaningful, but perhaps weren't practical earlier in life. One of the ideas that you'll hear me talk about quite a bit on this channel is that the goal isn't necessarily retirement. The goal is optionality. The goal is reaching a point where work becomes a choice rather than a necessity, where you can continue working because you want to, not because you have to. And that distinction is incredibly important. And I think it's especially relevant for those of us in Generation X. Many of us have spent decades building careers, raising families, paying mortgages, saving for retirement, helping children through college, school, and trying to do the best we can with the opportunities we've been given. And now many of us are beginning to ask some very important questions. How much is enough? What does retirement actually look like? Do I even want traditional retirement? What role will work continue to play in my life? How do I prepare financially? How do I prepare emotionally? How do I create a life that is meaningful beyond my career? And perhaps most importantly, how do I make sure that the next chapter of life is every bit as rewarding as the chapter that came before it? Now, I certainly don't pretend to have all the answers, not even close. In many ways, I'm on this journey myself. I'm still learning, I'm still planning, still asking questions. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to start this channel now rather than after retirement. I thought it might be valuable to share the journey in real time, to share the questions, to share the lessons, to share the successes. And yes, probably share a few mistakes along the way as well. So, my hope is that this becomes a community of thoughtful people who are navigating similar transitions and who are willing to learn from one another. Some videos will focus on financial independence, some will focus on retirement planning, some will focus on investing. Others may focus on purpose, identity, health, travel, hybrid retirement, semi retirement, meaningful work, and creating a life with greater freedom and intentionality. Because ultimately, this channel isn't just about retirement, it's about designing a life, it's about creating choices, it's about building optionality, and it's about making the most of whatever chapter comes next. Now, before I wrap up, I do want to mention that while I have a professional background in finance and accounting, nothing on this channel should be considered financial, legal, tax, or investment advice. These videos are simply my personal thoughts, my opinions, experiences, and observations. So everyone's situation is different, and I always encourage people to seek professional guidance regarding your own circumstances. Finally, I just want to just thank you for being here, whether you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, already retired, or simply thinking ahead. I hope you'll join me for the conversations ahead. I'm excited about this journey. I'm excited about the community we're building, and I'm excited to share and explore what this next chapter can look like together. Thank you for watching, and welcome to the next chapter with C. James Merritt.